Why'd you do it? Why'd you waste Cyrus?
No reason.
They were 9 soldiers in leather vests, stranded in a city that wanted them dead, framed for murder, hunted by hundreds. No phones, no allies, no way out, except through the night. The Warriors wasn't supposed to survive. Critics called it nihilistic. Parents called it dangerous. Cities tried to ban it. But somehow, this pulpy, low-budget gang film clawed its way into cult legend, etched into subway walls, whispered about in alleys, and immortalized in midnight screenings.
I'll shove that bat up your ass and turn you into a popsicle. Come on.
And yet, beneath the graffiti and glory, the truth was far uglier. Fistfights broke out off camera. Real gangs stalked the shoot. Actors vanished mid-production. And behind the lens, a director pushed everyone to the edge of exhaustion and sanity. What were the rules on that set? And who broke them? How close did the film come to collapse? What did the studio cover up after the blood dried and the trains rolled on?
Now there ain't but 20,000 police in the whole town. Can you dig it?
Let's uncover 20 secrets they never wanted you to know about the Warriors. Secret fact. 1. The studio that tried to kill it. The Warriors was greenlit reluctantly. Paramount Pictures didn't believe in it. They saw it as a low-budget exploitation flick, a B-movie with no stars, no safety net, and no future. Walter Hill had to fight to direct it. And even after filming wrapped, the studio panicked. Why? Test screenings terrified executives. Audiences were either confused or enthralled, but never neutral. Word spread fast. This wasn't just a movie, it was a movement. Paramount freaked. Instead of launching a marketing campaign, they ordered posters pulled from theaters. TV spots were canceled, newspaper ads were scrapped. They tried to bury the Warriors before it could rise. Ironically, their fear only added to the myth, and the streets, not the studio, made it immortal. Paramount tried to kill the noise, but the streets turned it into a war cry. Secret fact 2. Real gang fears shut down. Filming parts of The Warriors were filmed in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New York City, at night, with minimal security. That wasn't a creative decision. It was a budget constraint, but it came with real consequences. The cast and crew were regularly confronted by actual gangs, some of whom weren't thrilled about a Hollywood film stylizing turf warfare. One crew member was beaten. Equipment was stolen, and on multiple nights, filming had to shut down early due to death threats. They weren't actors pretending to be afraid. They were terrified. Real tension seeped into the performances, especially in the more isolated chase scenes. That gritty authenticity, it came at a price, and not everyone made it through unscathed.
The Warrior! He shot Cyrus!
Man, you're crazy. I didn't do nothing.
We saw him! Yeah, that...
They wanted grit on camera, but what they captured was fear bleeding in from the edges. Secret fact 3. The murder that haunted the premiere. Just days after The Warriors opened in theaters, a young man was stabbed to death outside a screening in Boston. Within 48 hours, a second incident followed in Southern California. Another stabbing, another victim, both reportedly linked to gang altercations at showings of the film. The media pounced. The Warriors was accused of inciting violence. Headlines screamed killer movie, and law enforcement began pressuring theaters to pull it from rotation. Paramount, already jittery, pulled all advertising and let the film's distribution quietly shrink. But the damage and the myth was done. To this day, the murder outside that Boston theater remains a shadow over the film's legacy, a tragic, real-world echo of its fictional chaos.
You can't do this to me! You lost, bitch!
The violence was meant to stay on screen, but the Warriors spilled into the real world, and the blood never quite washed off. Secret fact 4. Walter Hill's Secret War with the cast director. Walter Hill had a vision, minimalist, stylized, near mythological, but the young cast wanted grit, realism, and connection. The result? Constant friction. Hill discouraged bonding. He told actors not to socialize off-set. He believed the distance would enhance the tension between rival gangs. But for a group of mostly mostly unknown actors, this approach created confusion and mistrust. Some even accused Hill of being cold, unreachable, and overly rigid. One actor described the set as a battlefield with no rules. Hill, meanwhile, refused to compromise. He wanted fable, not friendship, and though that tension translated brilliantly on screen, it left behind bruised egos and broken relationships that never healed.
Looking for us?
We found what we're looking for.
Hill didn't want camaraderie, he wanted collision, and when the cameras stopped rolling, the damage was already done. Secret Fact 5. Why Cyrus was almost erased. Roger Hill's electrifying performance as Cyrus is legendary, commanding, prophetic, unforgettable. But what most people don't know is that he was nearly cut from the film. The original studio notes hated the character. They thought his speech was too theatrical, too long, and too black. Executives pushed to trim or remove the scene entirely, calling it a pacing problem. Walter Hill fought back. He insisted Cyrus was the mythic core, the leader whose death triggered the entire Odyssey. Hill won, barely, but the moment wasn't safe until the final cut locked. Roger Hill never capitalized on the role. He disappeared from Hollywood soon after, but in just a few minutes of screen time, he became legend, and almost no one ever saw it.
Can you count, suckers?
He spoke just once, but it echoed forever. And if the studio had its way, we'd never have heard it at all. Secret Fact 6. The lost opening you were never meant to see. Originally, the Warriors didn't begin with Cyrus. It opened with a slow, ominous scene in Coney Island. The gang is preparing for their journey. Tensions already in the air. They discuss what might happen, who might show up, and whether this Cyrus guy is really worth the risk. It was a quiet, eerie setup, one that grounded the characters in their home turf before throwing them into chaos. But the studio hated it. They thought it dragged. They wanted the action to start immediately. So they cut the opening and started with the subway montage that jumps straight into the gathering at Van Cortlandt Park. That deleted opening was considered lost for decades, until a bootleg surfaced at a convention in the mid-2000s. Fans were stunned. The missing scene added depth, hinted at rivalries, and changed how you saw the gang. One missing reel. And suddenly, the Warriors was a different movie.
No matter what he says, nobody lip off. Nobody get hot. I'm gonna see what I can do.
One scene buried for decades, and when it resurfaced, it rewrote everything we thought we knew. Secret Fact 7. A fight so brutal, it made the cut. The bathroom fight with the punks is one of the most intense scenes in the movie, and it was realer than you think. Most of the actors performed their own stunts, but during filming, things got out of control. David Harris, who played Coaches, accidentally broke a stuntman's nose. Michael Beck, Swan, suffered a gash to the head that required stitches. The floor was so slick with soap and water that even trained fighters were slipping mid-combat. But director Walter Hill loved it. He insisted the camera keep rolling. That raw pain and panic, that wasn't just choreography, that was real exhaustion, real fear, and real bruises. The scene became legendary, not because it was perfectly staged, but because it wasn't. It was chaos, captured. It looked like a fight, but what they captured was survival, filmed in real time. Secret Fact 8. Why real gangs wanted revenge. The Warriors may have featured fictional gangs, but the real ones were watching, and they weren't impressed. Groups like the Savage Nomads, the Black Spades, and the Ghetto Brothers felt mocked by the film's theatrical depiction. Baseball uniforms, roller skates, painted faces, they saw it as disrespectful. In some neighborhoods, the cast was warned not to wear their costumes between takes. Rumors even spread that certain gangs were planning to retaliate. To avoid bloodshed, Paramount quietly hired off-duty NYPD officers as bodyguards. In some areas, they paid local gangs just to film without incident. What started as a stylized homage to street culture almost became a war between fantasy and reality. And the scars from that tension still linger in the city's underground folklore.
These are the famous warriors, the guys that shot Cyrus.
Shit, the chicks are packed! The chicks are packed!
They dressed up gang life for the screen, but the streets didn't see fiction. They saw a challenge. Secret Fact 9. The subway scene that almost got them arrested. Most of the subway scenes in The Warriors were shot without permits. The MTA had given limited access, but Walter Hill needed more time and more tension. So the crew started stealing shots. They'd hop on real trains, film in secret, then jump off at the next stop before transit police noticed. One night, a PA was nearly arrested trying to distract a conductor while the camera team shot a take. In another instance, a city worker noticed fake graffiti on a train car and reported it as vandalism. For a few hours, the production was under investigation for defacing MTA property. Those late-night sequences, they weren't just gritty. They were borderline illegal, and that sense of danger, it wasn't acting.
Union Square! Union Square! What about the other? We gotta go!
They didn't just film in the shadows, they became part of them, one stolen shot at a time. Secret Fact 10. The real reason Fox pulled the posters. In early February 1979, just days after the film's release, movie theater owners began tearing down the Warriors posters overnight. Not because they wanted to, because Fox, the film's distributor, told them to. Two violent incidents at screenings had made national news. Executives feared lawsuits. And behind closed doors, law enforcement warned of potential copycat turf wars. Fox's lawyers got involved. They recommended removing any promotional material that depicted gang imagery, including the now iconic poster. For 2 weeks, The Warriors became an invisible film. No ads, no banners, no billboards. But the result was ironic. The silence made it louder. Crowds lined up because they couldn't see what the movie was about. They had to experience it for themselves. And a buried film became a legend by vanishing from sight. They tried to erase the image, but in hiding it, they made it unforgettable. Secret Fact 11. That infamous baseball Furies fight? Rigged. The Furies became the most visually iconic gang in the film, silent, deadly, and dressed like deranged Yankees. But the now famous fight scene wasn't nearly as clean as it looked. In fact, it was rigged from the start. The actors playing the Furies had no stunt training, many were hired last minute and barely rehearsed. So when it came time to choreograph the chase and brawl, Walter Hill made a call. Only the Warriors were allowed to actually win. The Furies were told to miss their marks, fall on cue, and keep it theatrical. That's why their bat swings look menacing but rarely connect. Hill wasn't going for realism. He wanted a surreal, balletic beatdown. Think horror movie meets kung fu. The result? A stylized scene that felt more like a nightmare than a street fight. But behind the smoke and baseball bats, the danger was mostly an illusion. They looked like nightmares unleashed, but the fear they brought was all in the performance. Secret Fact 12. Why the cast refused to talk after rap. Once filming rap, something strange happened. The cast scattered. No rap party, no reunions, no joint interviews. In fact, for decades, most of the actors didn't speak publicly about the Warriors at all. Why? Some blamed the grueling shoot. Others pointed to Walter Hill's cold, isolating direction. But there was something deeper. They didn't feel safe. With real threats from gangs, media accusations of inciting violence, and little support from the studio, the young cast felt abandoned. The film had become controversial overnight. Some agents even told their clients to avoid being associated with it. For a film about brotherhood, it ended in silence. Only years later, after the film became a cult classic, did the actors begin reuniting at fan events, slowly reclaiming the legacy they were once afraid to embrace.
Warriors, come out to play.
It was a film about unity, but when the cameras stopped, everyone ran alone. Secret Fact 13. The original ending that was too bleak to air. In Walter Hill's original script, the Warriors didn't walk off triumphantly. They dissolved. One by one, they left the gang life behind. Some vanished into the city. Others walked into the ocean. The final scene was meant to be symbolic. A disbanding, a death of identity. The gang didn't win. They survived, but at a cost. The studio hated it. Too depressing, they said. Audiences needed a sense of closure, even if it was false. So a new ending was filmed, The gang walks the beach at dawn. They're still together, still standing. Barely. It wasn't a happy ending, but it wasn't the total dissolution Hill had planned. The real ending was buried in the editing room, a ghost of a conclusion no one ever saw.
Why'd you waste Cyrus?
No reason. I just like doing things like that.
They reached the ocean, but not the ending Walter Hill imagined. The real finale was lonelier, and it never made it out alive. Secret fact 14. James Remar's explosive exit. James Remar was electric as Ajax, aggressive, impulsive, volatile. But his time on set ended just as explosively as the character's arc. Midway through filming, Remar was arrested in New York on drug-related charges. The studio and director scrambled. They debated recasting or rewriting the role. In the end, Remar finished his scenes, but his presence became toxic. Tensions with Walter Hill boiled over. Rumors of on-set altercations swirled. After filming, Remar and Hill never worked together again. Ajax was supposed to play a bigger role in the climax, but the footage was cut. What we got instead was an abrupt arrest, a van ride, and silence. Off-screen, the story was even darker. And for Remar, the Warriors became both a breakout and a breakdown.
Come on. Quit playing around. You don't want to play around with me.
Ajax went out in handcuffs. On screen and off, his fire burned too hot to last. Secret fact 15. How the crew barely escaped a Brooklyn mob. In one of the film's riskiest sequences, the crew set up for a late-night shoot in Brooklyn without fully clearing the location with neighborhood leaders. At the time, many areas were still run by organized groups. Not gangs, but something older and far less forgiving. As the cameras rolled, local residents showed up, angry. They weren't acting. They thought the film was glorifying violence and dragging heat into their neighborhood. Within minutes, the crew was surrounded. Equipment was threatened. Words turned to shoves. Someone reportedly pulled a knife. A producer made a desperate call to a local contact, someone with connections. A few words were exchanged. A handshake deal was made. The crew packed up, fast. The footage never made it into the final cut, but the story passed around for years like an urban legend. The night the Warriors nearly triggered a real-world turf war. It was meant to be a scene, but for one night in Brooklyn, the Warriors almost started a real war. Secret fact 16. The studio cut that erased an entire Warrior. There was once another Warrior, a ninth member of the crew. He had lines, scenes, and even his own subplot. But by the time the Warriors hit theaters, he was gone. His name was Ash. Played by actor Tony Daniels, he was meant to be the brains of the group, cautious, observant, the moral compass. But test audiences didn't respond well. He was too quiet, too cerebral, and didn't fit the tone, according to studio notes. So Paramount ordered reshoots. Daniels' scenes were either rewritten with new characters or cut entirely. Even in group shots, he's mysteriously absent. The actor's name was pulled from the final cast list. No explanation, no credit. Ash was erased from the gang and from history. But eagle-eyed fans still swear you can spot him, just once, lurking in the shadows during the film's opening montage.
This is what we fought all night to get back to?
He was the Warrior no one remembered, because the studio made sure you'd forget. Secret fact 17. What happened to the Orphans? They weren't colorful like the Furies. They weren't threatening like the Rogues. But the Orphans left an impression, particularly Mercy, the foul-mouthed, fearless girl who joins the Warriors mid-journey. But here's the twist. The Orphans were originally meant to come back. In a deleted sequence, the Orphans follow the Warriors and Mercy, eventually ambushing them near a Queen's scrapyard. It's chaotic, emotional, and brutal. One orphan is killed. Mercy is nearly recaptured. But test audiences were exhausted by that point. The pacing dragged, so the scene was cut entirely. The orphans vanish. No resolution, no revenge. Just one of cinema's most abrupt gang exits, gone without a trace. And that left viewers with a question that still lingers. Whatever happened to those green-shirted ghosts?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. How could this be a big meeting if the Orphans wasn't there?
They walked off the screen unfinished, a gang erased mid-story, leaving only questions in their wake. Secret Fact 18, the soundtrack that got sabotaged. Barry Dvorzan's theme for the Warriors is iconic, dark, pulsating, synth-heavy. But it was just one part of a much larger, experimental soundtrack that was supposed to feature multiple original songs by up-and-coming punk and funk artists from New York. The idea was to fuse underground street music with cinematic storytelling. But as production fell behind schedule, the studio pulled funding for the full score. Several artists, including a then-unknown hip-hop group, were dropped. Their songs were shelved or sold elsewhere. Only fragments remain. A few tracks made it to the official vinyl. Most disappeared into label vaults. To this day, fans hunt for the Lost Warriors soundtrack, a record that was never completed, sabotaged by budget cuts and studio panic. Music that might have changed the film's legacy, erased before it ever played.
For all you boppers out there in the big city, all you street people with an ear for the action, I've been asked to relay a request.
It was meant to be a soundtrack for the streets, but most of it never made it out of the shadows. Secret Fact 19, from cult classic to blacklisted film. After its controversial release and fading box office run, The Warriors disappeared. For years, it was almost impossible to find. Paramount buried it. No theatrical re-releases, no home video promotion. Even the soundtrack went out of print. Why? Internal politics? The studio considered the film a liability. Lawsuits loomed, and as the 80s gave way to more sanitized blockbusters, The Warriors was seen as a dangerous relic. Too violent, too controversial, too raw. It wasn't until late-night cable reruns and bootleg VHS tapes circulated that the cult began to grow. Fan clubs formed, screenings sold out. Paramount eventually re-released it in 2000 with a new director's cut. But for 2 decades, The Warriors was the movie no one wanted to talk about.
All of you stay behind me. I'm gonna take them out to the sand.
What about you? You ready?
And that silence only deepened its legend. For years, it was vanished on purpose. A film too raw to sell, too loud to forget. Secret Fact 20, the cast reunion that never happened. Unlike other cult classics, Star Wars, Back to the Future, The Goonies, The Warriors never had a full cast reunion, not on camera, not in public. Attempts were made, a documentary was proposed, panels were planned, but disagreements, faded careers, and old tensions stood in the way. Some cast members left acting entirely. Others resented how they were treated after the release, ignored, unpaid, or blamed for controversy. Michael Beck, Swan, and Deborah Van Valkenburg, Mercy, occasionally appear at conventions, but the full 9 never together, not once. Fans hoped that one day they'd all return to Coney Island. One last photo, one last war cry. But like so much about the Warriors, the ending remains unfinished.
Over one borough at a time. Secure our territory.
They fought side by side on screen, but in real life, the Warriors never came back together. The Warriors wasn't supposed to endure. A brutal, neon-soaked nightmare of a film about outcasts, fugitives, and forgotten youth. But it struck a nerve, because beneath the grit and violence was a deeper question. What does it take to survive when the whole world wants you gone? And who do we become when the masks we wear are all that protect us? If this revealed something you never knew, drop your favorite gang or line in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more untold truths behind the legends. After all, when the streets go silent, the real stories start to echo.